Kia ora team. Well, my name is Mark, for those of you that don't know me, and I'm from the Healthy Active Learning team at Active Southland. Um, we're really excited to introduce Andrea Greer, which many of you will know from Nurturing Relationships, who's going to facilitate our online PLD today on moving to boost learning. So I've spent a little bit of time with Andrea over the last sort of 5, 6 months, and I've learnt a lot. So I'm extremely excited to learn even more today. So Andrea has an absolute passion for supporting tamariki to thrive, and also has a wealth of knowledge and expertise for supporting teachers. So it's going to be an awesome online PLD. So thanks a lot, Andrea, for being available at
Oh,
7:30 at night.
yeah. Oh, thank you, Mark.
Cool.
Yeah,
Pass
that's
you the
cool.
mic.
Yeah. Oh, thank you. Thank you, Mark, for organizing this and for Active Southland. I'm hosting this webinar for us. So a little bit about me. So tēnā koutou katoa, ko Bukit Timahu toko monga, ko Singapore River toko awa, no Singapore aho, ko Andrea Greer toko ingawa, no reira tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou katoa. So first of all, I just want to say a big warm welcome to you guys. I think there's some of us that are even from outside of Southland here, somebody from Masterton and all parts of the country. So if you want to chat in where you're from in the country, we'd love to connect and see where everybody is from. So feel free to do that. So a little bit about myself. I'm the founder of Nurturing Relationships, and my background is social work. And I just love working, especially with tamariki. So I do play therapy with lots of tamariki at the moment, especially I'm a counselor in a school here in Southland. So I just love using creative kind of methods and strategies to be able to engage tamariki. So really, I just want to acknowledge your commitment to be here this evening. And it really just, highlights to me your passion for supporting Mokapuna to thrive and to flourish. I know it's such a busy time of the year, term four, there's so much stuff on, and we're all counting down to Christmas and the holidays. So thank you so much for giving up your time.
Zoom meeting.
So we've got people from all the way from Timaru, Christchurch, Masterton, Dunedin, Invercargill, Balclutha. So welcome everybody. So the mission
Yeah,
of
I like that one, Chris.
nurturing
Yeah, I just like that
relationships.
gag, Chris.
Oh,
I don't like
what are you
people looking
saying?
at us in there. Yeah,
You know who
try
that
come on.
is?
Yeah, the
I think
doors
that
though.
might be Maddie. That might be you, mate.
We mute it? Oh yeah, I'll find a mute button. Is there a way to mute, Maddie?
Actually, if you go have a shower,
Us.
we're trying to get out.
Oh
Dinner will be
no,
ready.
we're hearing the
Got about 10
bedtime
minutes.
routines. That's all good. So the vision of nurturing relationships is really about empowering the village to transform lives and seeing our Mokapuna thrive and flourish. And today, I really hope that this webinar will also give you tools in your kitty to understand the children in your classroom, the unique children that they are, and to be able to use these strategies to be able to use them in your unique setting. So I'm really excited to bring this webinar for you today called Moving to Boost Learning. And we're going to be looking at the neuroscience behind some brain-based learning in the classroom. So I just hope that today's workshop will be really, really practical for you and you can use that going forward. So just want to open up the space with karakia. So feel free to say that with me. Kia hora te marino, kia whakapapa pounamu te moana, he huarahi mā tātou I te rangine. Aroha atu, aroha mai, tātou I e tātou katoa. Hui e tākie. So wishing you all peace on this day and peace on your whānau and on your communities as we move forward. Awesome. So a little bit about me and my background for those that don't know me. I'm originally from Singapore City, as I mentioned in my PPH, and I've lived in Aotearoa, New Zealand for 18 years. I came straight from Singapore and landed in Invercargill, so it was a little bit of a culture shock and also a shock in terms of temperature and the weather, because Singapore is a very tropical country with 5 million people in the size of Lake Taupo. So coming to Invercargill was, a bit of a difference. But I really love the people of Southland, Southlanders, yay. And, just just being here and just practicing social work here in Southland. So I've practiced here in Southland for 18 years, and I just really love working with the community. So ironically, life brings us on a journey, and I would always consider myself a city girl, but now ironically I live on a farm. Somehow I managed to marry a farmer, and life has, a real sense of humor. And some days I look out on the farm and wonder, why am I living on the farm? Because I'm actually scared of big animals. So it's real a real irony, but it's such a beautiful place to raise my children. And so I've got two children here. Um, as you can see in the picture, so Amelia, she's going to be 9 shortly, and then Amber is going to be 6. All of them, including my husband, are born in December. So we have very, very poor family planning on our part. And December is just a crazy, crazy time of the year for us, not just Christmas. And this year, we introduced a little person into our family, and he actually just turned 1 on Sunday. So we celebrated my little boy puppy. Charles is his name, and we celebrated his first birthday on Sunday. So he got a real cute kind of doggy cake that my daughter made for him. So we love living down here in Southland, and Fano for me is everything. So I'm so blessed to have them with me, including my little puppy dog who helps me clock up lots of steps during the day. So a little bit about me before we start. So why is movement so important? So let's look at the science behind this. So in the beginning, when we look at how we are wired evolutionary as human beings, that from the caveman days and the old Stone Age hunter-gatherer days, that we really needed to move in order to survive. So we needed to go out to not only find food, to gather food for our whānau, for our community, but we also needed to move according to the weather and what was going on. But we also needed to move for safety, for survival as well. So movement is actually wired in our DNA, ensuring us to survive. So when we think about modern lifestyle today, where a lot of time is spent sitting, we're driving in cars, we're sitting, we live very sedentary kind of lifestyles that actually goes against our biology. So we think about classroom settings that children are meant to sit for long periods of time, whereas we are designed to be able to move and designed to actually move in order to ensure survival. We can understand how this goes against our biology. So this is why in the first place, movement is so, so important and crucial for us as a human race and a human for our human DNA as well. So thinking about it from a Te Ao Māori perspective, here in Aotearoa, New Zealand, I just really want to acknowledge Te Whare Tapawha, because when Te Whare Tapawha by Sir Mason Dury talks about looking after our holistic well-being. So our ho'ora, which is not just about our tinana, which is our physical health, but it's also connected with our hinenaro, which is our mental and emotional health as well. And then we have taha whānau, which is our family connections, and then also our spiritual well-being as well, which is our wairua as well. So, something that I so love about my Asian culture is that I got to live with my grandma growing up, and she is this person here in this picture circled with the white circle around her. And she was really the person that embodied what it was like to live out well-being, to live out ho'ora. So a little bit of about a history about my grandmother. So as you can see on the picture on the left-hand side, that was her late husband that passed away actually when he was only in his 50s. And my grandmother and my grandfather had an interrace marriage and an interreligion marriage as well. So my grandmother was actually a Christian Chinese lady in Malaysia. And my grandfather, he was actually from Sri Lanka, and he was actually Hindu in terms of his religion. So they met because my grandmother was a nurse at the hospital, and my grandfather had migrated over to Malaysia from Sri Lanka as a doctor, and they worked together in the hospital. And sparks obviously flew, and they fell in love. But my grandfather actually faced a lot of resistance from his biological family when he wanted to marry my grandmother. And basically, his biological family said to him that if you choose to marry this woman who is of Christian faith and of a different race to you, that we will disown you from the family. And so on that day, my grandfather actually chose love over courage, and love and courage over, I guess his family. And so they were married for quite a number of years, and they had 6 children during that time. And my mom, in that picture on the right, was the youngest of 6. Sadly, at the age of when my mom was 12, her dad, so my grandfather, passed away very suddenly of a heart attack. So only in his 50s, and leaving my grandmother as a widow with 6 children. So my grandmother now was having to raise 6 children on her own in Malaysia, and having to also grieve, the loss of her partner as well. So my grandmother had to go through a journey not only of healing, I guess, her own grief, but also had to go through a real journey of looking after her well-being in a whole order, because she needed the courage and resilience to be able to raise her 6 children as well. And so I lived with her growing up, and I saw how she really embodied lots and lots of practices in terms of looking after her whole aura, in terms of looking after her holistic well-being. And these are some of the things that I wanted to share with you today that she did. It's frozen. So first of all, coming back from school, there was always a nice whiff of, broths or soups. My grandmother had always it was always brewing some form of bone broth or some healthy kind of soup on the table. And I just remember before sitting for examinations, she would always give me this chicken essence soup, and she said, "Oh, drink this, it's really good for your brain, and it will do really well for your exams." And I just remember drinking it and going, "Oh my gosh, it's making me gag." But obviously it didn't do me too bad because I passed all my exams, so maybe it was that secret potion that my grandma had in there. So she was very, very much about nourishing the body, nourishing the tinana, because she was a lady of faith. She believed that our body was a temple of God's spirit, and she always said to us, you need to look after your body and honor your body, because it is where the spirit of God resides in you. So that was her belief in that. She was very much also, she believed very much in us connecting with the land. So even though we grew up in a very urban city, she always got us to go into the rivers to swim over in Malaysia. She got us to, plant our own veggie garden. She taught me how to grow my own little veggies in a small little plot of land. She always got us to go out there to the fields and run barefoot and, just listen to the birds and catch worms and all sorts of things like that, play in the rain and stuff. And so for her belief was you need to connect with Mother Nature, or for in the Te Māori perspective, connect with Whenua, because that is where you're from. You come from the land. So she was very much about that too. She also was very much connected with her own culture. And so the picture on the left here was a traditional Malaysian dance that she used to dance called joget. And that was me in the middle here doing a little performance when I was in primary school. So the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So please don't ask me to, do that performance for you today. Even though I would love to, but I would just spare you guys tonight from that little performance. So that was me learning that. So she was very much about connecting with your culture. And then also she was very much about connecting with your warua as well. So connecting with your spirit and your spiritual being. So she really engaged in lots of contemplative practices of meditation, of prayer, of singing waiata, of singing hymns. For her, that was her way of connection. So I wanted to talk about this, first of all, because traditional wisdom, as we talked about earlier, where our DNA was very much wired for movement, traditional wisdom also backs up what modern science is telling us around what we do with our bodies, how our body is wired, and how we're designed. And we're really designed to move, and movement is the song of the body. So this is a very important thing for us to, as we move into talking about movement and why this is so important, is to take this lens of actually, we're not just getting children to move because it's something that we do as a checklist, but we're looking at it from a holistic point of view around well-being and how we can support that whole order. And there's so much research now that tells us that the more that we can encourage children to move and be physically active, the more we support also their mental health and their emotional health as well. So we are designed to move, and movement is the song of the body. It's the song that naturally children want to sing within their bodies. They naturally want to move. They naturally want to play. They naturally want to get engaged in some form of movement. But what modern society has done today is that we've suppressed that in our children, we've suppressed that in the generation, and they become very, very sedentary. So a lot of children are now, moving into, things like gaming, which gives them a lot of stimulation up here, but not necessarily in their physical bodies. So why is movement so important? How does it impact the brain? So there's so much positive, attributes of why movement and how it supports brain development, but also helps to support brain connections in our brain. So first of all, serotonin is that neurotransmitter that is released in our body and in our brain that helps to improve mood. In fact, 95% of serotonin is actually produced in the gut. So there's such a connection now between gut health and brain health and how healthy our emotional and mental health is as well. So it helps to increase and support our mood. It also supports our hippocampus. It helps it to grow. So that is the memory network. So when we're helping, trying to support children to learn in the classrooms, getting new skills, they're in the learning pit, and we're trying to get them to get out of the learning pit. We want to encourage the hippocampus to be able to grow. And the one way to do that is to be able to move their bodies as they're learning or in between chunks of learning as well. So it helps the neurons to connect. It supports brain cell regeneration. So we want, our brains to continue to grow, to continue to form new networks, to continue to rewire. And so movement and exercise helps with that. And then the last one is dopamine release as well. It helps us with that feeling of motivation, helps us with being able to focus on our learning, and just helps us to just feel good as we're learning, as we are able to sit there and actually give our all to our focus to our and what's in front of us, the task in front of us. So today, what we're going to do this evening is I'm going to break down the acronym BRAIN into, and we're going to be talking about practical strategies that you can use based on this acronym and 4 types of movements that you can implement into your classroom. So at any point in time, if any questions, feel free to chat it in the chat, and we'll have some time for corridor after. But first of all, I want to introduce you to this pyramid of learning. So this is very much what occupational therapists, their foundation of their work is the pyramid of learning. So here, as you can see, a lot of the skills that we learn right from a very young age, even from a baby, is from a bottom-up perspective. So as you can see, the foundation of this pyramid is the central nervous system. So that's all the survival functions that help us to survive. So our breathing, appetite, temperature regulation, all that stuff that we don't have to think about. But the next layer up is actually the sensory system. So the sensory system is really the foundations for learning. So if a child in your classroom is having lots of difficulties with, integrating tactile, so the touch system, sitting close to others on the mat and having to, feel quite overwhelmed by that or being overstimulated by those noises, then all that stuff is going to create a very shaky kind of pyramid in order for them to actually get up to the learning. So when we look at this pyramid of learning, we need to understand that actually the foundations for learning really comes from a very sensory level. So we make sense of our world through our senses. So the first point of, learning that we ever do right from birth is through the senses. We start to get to know the world by experiencing touch, by hearing our caregiver's voice talking to us, by experiencing rocking motions that calms our nervous system down. So all these pathways start to form foundations for then being able to know where your body is in space, being able to integrate auditory different sounds in the environment, being able to have visual perception, visual spatial awareness. And then it then affects our daily living skills, being able to tie shoelaces, being able to feed ourselves, and then also impacts on behavior as well. So you might have children in the classroom who, sometimes they might even struggle with sitting upright on their seats, and because of that, they're feeling really uncomfortable. The texture of their uniform the tag is really, really irritating them. And then there's noises in the classroom. There might be lights that come in, or the bright light that comes in from the sunlight. And then a busy classroom situation where they're supposed to concentrate on the task at hand, but yet there's so much sensory stimuli going on. Their brain can sometimes be, and their nervous system can sometimes be overloaded. And so this then impacts on their academic learning. So I think this is very important for us to be aware of that. First of all, if we want to support, bring the best out in our tamariki with regards to learning, with regards to focus, attention, then we need to start making sure that the foundations of the sensory system is right for them. Yeah, and so we're going to look into how we can do that in this session. So first of all, let's do a little bit of a check-in. So how alert are you feeling now from a scale of 0 to 10? So feel free to check that in the chat. So 0 is, I'm feeling really, really tired. I'm struggling to keep myself awake. No judgment here. It's 7:30 at night, and it's a long term 4. And 10 is, I'm feeling the best that I can. So if anybody wants to check in what your scores are, we'll just have a look. Oh wow, cool. 6, 7, 8, 9. Wow, you're doing 10. Cool, awesome. Can you pass some of the energy over to me as well? To honest, I love the honesty. 8 and 9. Cool, perfect. It's great. So now what I want you to do is I want you to tune in to your body and ask yourself, what does my nervous system need right now? Maybe what does my sensory system need right now to help me to shift my score up just by 1 score? So does it need a stretch? Do I need proprioception? So do I need to give myself some tight squeezes? Do I need to, if you have a drink of water, do I need to grab a drink of water? Do I need to maybe squeeze my palms together? Do I need to stand up and give myself a good shake? What does your body need? And I want you to give yourself the opportunity to do that for your body. Yeah, awesome. Okay, and now I want you to check in again. Has that score shifted? For the ones at 10, maybe it's gone to 10 plus. Have you felt anything shift in your body? So feel free to check that in. If you've noticed the score shifting in any way, and have you noticed any changes in that felt sensation in your body? Oh, awesome. Great. So now what I want to introduce you to is the first acronym for B is buckets. So I'm going to introduce you to 3 different buckets, which helps us to understand the different sensory system. So first of all, I want to introduce you to the passive underresponder. So the passive underresponder is very much like the character Eeyore that we know in Winnie the Pooh. So this bucket is pretty big. And what the passive underresponder needs is lots of alerting activity. So you might know this child in your classroom. So often this child presents as tired, lethargic, can't be bothered. And sometimes they're labeled as, they're lazy, or sometimes they're labeled as, they're unmotivated. But sometimes it could be that they have a sensory system that is really under responding to the sensory stimuli that's going around them. So this is very much like the character Eeyore. So they have a big bucket where they actually need lots and lots of alerting activities to be able to lift them up, to alert their sensory system, to enable them to then focus at the task at hand. So that's the passive under responder. And then next we have the sensory seeker. So a lot of us are very, very familiar with sensory seekers. We hear them before we see them. They are like figures in the sensory seekers. They are constantly moving. They're constantly fidgeting. They're the ones, when they're sitting in the mat, they have to squirm around, or they might, be nudging their friends on the mat with them. They're constantly the ones in the playground. They are risk takers as well. So they're constantly seeking out the adrenaline rush. So they're going up high and jumping off stuff. So they are very, very much craving for that sensory stimuli. So for sensory seekers, because they have such a massive, massive bucket, they need lots and lots and lots of stimuli, sensory stimuli throughout their day, which are fast, intense movements in order to fill up their threshold for them to feel regulated in their body and their nervous system. So sensory seekers, they are the ones that often are misunderstood, and they are often, the ones that are called into the principal's office a lot of the times. And many of them are misdiagnosed with ADHD as well. And the interesting thing about the ADHD medication is it's actually a stimulant. So we think about Ritalin, Concerta. What it does to the nervous system is actually it stimulates the nervous system up to the threshold. So I don't want to pass any judgment around medication. I do think that it has a place, and definitely there are, children that do need medication. However, I've seen a lot of children from a very young age that are medicated, even from the age of 4. And what happens is that they are not given a chance to be able to connect with their bodies and their nervous system and their sensory system, and not given enough of that movement breaks that they need, or that sensory system sensory kind of activities that they need that are fast, intense, and give them the adrenaline seeking boost that they are seeking after. So there's a real dopamine hit that these children are seeking out. So these are the sensory seekers. And then we have the over responsive. So these are the ones with the very tiny bucket. And I've got a daughter that is an over responder. So, it doesn't take much for bright lights, for a noisy assembly, for somebody standing too close to them, for somebody talking and then spit lands on their face, and they get just so overwhelmed by everything. Or, there's a new sock that we're wearing on our feet, and all of a sudden it's very, very itchy, and I can't seem to concentrate on the writing at hand because the sock on my feet is really annoying me. So these are the over responders, and they have a tiny bucket. So it doesn't take much for the sensory stimuli to come in and for them to feel really, really overwhelmed. So it's really important that we understand that children have different bucket sizes, and there's sometimes that there might be that the different senses might have different size buckets as well. So I'm currently working with a boy that his tactile system, so his touch system and his auditory system, is a small bucket. But for his other senses and other sensory systems, his bucket is a sensory seeker. So his vestibular system, which is that sense of balance and proprioception, he's really seeking that out. So it's about understanding the unique makeup of the child. And there is no right or wrong in this. It's just how we are wired, and to celebrate those uniqueness in our children and tamariki. So as we go on into the rest of this workshop, I want you to think of the children in your classrooms that you work with that have different size buckets, and how you can weave all these different movement exercises to fit into your day to support their sensory needs. Awesome. So maybe what we'll do now before we go into the next part is, Mark, could we break everybody up into a breakout room just for 1 minute, just for everybody to kind of talk about, the buckets and what are some, I guess, different bucket sizes that you might notice in your classroom, and just have a kind of a corridor around that. So can we do that quickly for just 1 minute before we move on? Awesome. I'll see you back in 1 minute.
Well, let me know when you want them back, Andrea.
Yeah, cool. Has it been 1 minute?
That probably has been. Do you want me? I'll close all the rooms
Yeah,
now.
cool. Thank you.
Okay. All right, 57 seconds. Cool.
Cool. Perfect. Yeah, just thought we'll break it up a little bit and get people
Cool.
just, a little bit more engaged.
Perfect.
Yeah. Awesome. Welcome back. Hopefully that has given you some time to just consolidate the learning so far and just kind of even integrate some of the learning around, some of the tamariki that might have different bucket sizes in your classroom and just keeping them in mind as we move on into the next section. Cool, great. I think everyone's back now.
Okay.
Awesome. So the next acronym that I want to introduce to you is R. So we talked about buckets for B and R for reorganizing. So I want to talk about reorganizing. So when we think about reorganizing, I like to think of it as, sometimes when we are really, really rushed, we have a really rushed morning, we're trying to get the kids, organized to go to school, and the clock's ticking, and we're looking at the clock, and we're, running late, and then the dog is, we need to feed the dog, and the dog's, running and not listening, and you're putting the dog away, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my goodness, where's my car keys? And you're like, oh, rushing, rushing, rushing. And then you finally get to work and you're sitting down at a meeting at a hui, and you go, oh my goodness, my brain's kind of scattered all over the place. We kind of need a little bit of reorganizing in order to gather ourselves so that we can be present for our mahi. So this is what reorganizing is about. So our brain kind of feels like it's all over the show. It's a little bit scattered. And then we kind of get ourselves, whether it's through grounding exercise, or we take a deep breath, a drink of water, or we do something for ourselves like, swing and stuff like that to help to reorganize our brains so that we can be a little bit more grounded and present for the task at hand. So this is what reorganizing activities are. So I want to introduce you to this really amazing kind of sensory system in our body called proprioception. So proprioception is, we have proprioceptive receptors all in our muscles and joints all over our body. And anytime that we exert pressure, so we put pressure on, so whether we're using body resistance exercises, we're pushing or pulling something, we're vacuuming, for example, or we are doing heavy work. So heavy work kind of heavy work, deep pressure exercises, we stimulate that proprioceptive input or that proprioceptive receptors in our body. And so what the literature tells us is that proprioceptive input is very reorganizing and really grounding for the brain and the nervous system. So this is the marvelous thing that I learned from an occupational therapist, Gwen, from Sensational Brain, around the fact that when sometimes, when we're working with a classroom that has so many different tamariki with lots of different size buckets, and we're thinking, my goodness, I don't know what kind of activity to bring in right now in terms of movement. If we think about bringing in proprioceptive kind of input, any kind of proprioceptive input is very reorganizing for all the buckets. So it's kind of like that magic movement, I guess, sensory activity that you can bring in because it is really, really grounding and regulating for all bucket sizes and all the nervous system. So that's proprioceptive reception. So what sort of activities give proprioceptive input? So again, it's any activity that works the muscles and joints, and any activity that involves heavy work. So whether it's lifting or carrying something heavy, carrying the lunchbox and delivering it around the different classrooms, or providing your body with any kind of deep pressure touch. So giving yourself a tight squeeze, for example, that also stimulates the proprioceptive receptors in the body. So some ideas here: rock climbing, the playground. Again, you're using that muscles and joints, that pressure in order to pull up, and body resistance. Carrying a box of books to the library, that's also heavy work as well. As a whole classroom activity, you could, do this let's push the walls out. So everybody find a wall space, let's push against the wall as hard as we can. So that again is that deep pressure input that you're giving. You're using the muscles and joints that push, pull, body resistance activities. And any kind of using, like squats here, you're stretching, you're doing yoga moves, that weight bearing activities. This all involves proprioception as well. For children, especially those that are over responders with that tiny little bucket, it might sometimes they also respond very well to tight spaces where they can have a little box and you can make a squishy box with lots of soft toys, and they can go inside there and feel that deep pressure, kind of feeling confined and safe within a small area. So that is also very, very calming for the body as well. So you have things like rolling a Swiss ball over a child. If you have a luxury of a trampoline or mini tramp, or if you don't have that, even just jumping or stomping, all those movement activities that provide that deep pressure that with the muscles and joints, that can be very, very grounding for the nervous system as well. So when is a good time for us to implement proprioceptive input? So if we think about it, before and after transitions is a very, very good time, because as we talked about how proprioception works for all the bucket sizes. So if children come, they're dropped off at school, you don't know what sort of morning they may have had. They may have had a rush morning before coming to school. Maybe, they've had an argument with mom or dad. Maybe they haven't had breakfast. So a really good time for settling activity into the classroom is let's all do a proprioceptive activity as a classroom. So it could be let's stand up, let's give our body a really, really good stretch. Let's give ourselves a tight squeeze down our arms and all the way down our legs. Let's, balance on one foot, feel that pressure on that one foot and the weight, and then do it on the other side. So proprioceptive input, you could even do yoga and Pilates to start your morning. So before and after transition, so after playtime, when children come in, they're a little bit dysregulated, do a proprioceptive activity as a whole class to be able to ground their bodies again. As I mentioned, a whole class regulation strategy. This is the number one tip that I can give you for if you're not sure what to do for, to meet all the different bucket needs. Proprioceptive activities are great. And then also during learning, when you notice a child losing focus and you want to bring them back, you can just support them to, give yourself a really tight squeeze. Do you need to do a chair pull up? So sit on the chair and then resist by pulling up and pushing down as you're sitting down on the chair. So that can be a really good kind of quick burst of proprioceptive input that you provide. So in summary, when in doubt, you're not sure which bucket to use and the classroom seems a little bit chaotic at the moment, fall back into proprioceptive input or proprioceptive activities. Awesome. Some organizing activities are also activities that use motor and sensory, both involves the motor, so that is basically using a muscles and joints and sensories activity. So it stimulates the body's senses and activities activates the brain at the same time. So organizing activities could be things that like Simon Says is a really good game for them to walk across a beam or even on a straight line, requiring balance and requiring them to be able to not only use their body but to also focus and using their brain as well. It could be activities like crawling or even crawling through a tunnel. You may not have a tunnel, but it could be like, let's do crab crawls on the floor. Let's do bear walks on all our fours. So again, we're stimulating the body through the proprioception, but also using, stimulating the brain as well. So motor skills, balance and posture, rhythm and timing, and cognitive problem solving. So with games like Simon Says, that's really effective. And then you also have games where they have to, throw a ball into a target, for example. That can be also really, really organizing too. So the next acronym I want to talk about is A for alerting activities. So when we talk about alerting activities, it's activities that basically stimulate the nervous system, stimulates the sensory system. So when we're talking about alerting activities, I want to introduce you to the vestibular system. So the vestibular system is located in the inner ear, and we have fluid in our inner ear that helps us to detect whether our head is moving forward or moving back, or how balanced we feel, whether our feet are feeling on the ground or off the ground. So that is our vestibular system kicking in. So the vestibular system is known as one of the sensory powerhouses, and it's really, really powerful and has a latent effect. So a latent effect means that it has a long-lasting effect on the body and the sensory system. So anyone been on a boat before, and you've been on a cruise ship or a boat at sea and it's rocking, you start to feel a little bit seasick and stuff like that. And maybe you've been on the boat, for a good couple of hours. And the moment you step out of the boat, and even though you're on land, you kind of feel a little bit like your body is still rocking. Yeah, anybody experienced that before? So that is the latent effect. So even though the vestibular system isn't being stimulated right then and then when you're off on shore, your brain and your vestibular system is still working out. It's still doing its rounds and still working. So the latent effect is really, really powerful. So, sometimes they say that this can last even for 3 to 4 hours after. So this is really, really important when we're thinking about the different bucket sizes, because for children that have a small over responsive system, if they have too much vestibular input, for example, if they're running on rocky ground, or they're jumping on a trampoline, they're on a swing, they can sometimes feel quite overloaded really, really quickly because the vestibular system might be quite small. Whereas for a sensory seeker that has a massive, massive bucket, and you want them to be able to fill up their bucket to get to the threshold, vestibular system and vestibular sensory activity can be very, very effective in getting them to that threshold. So I'm currently working with a boy that loves swings. And so before he starts school, a good 20 minutes on the swing, and his swinging is not like a calm kind of rocking. It's like, whoa, let's go as high as we can, because he's a sensory seeker. And because that vestibular system is kicked in for that first 20 minutes before he starts school, his bucket is then filled up, which then enables him to go into class, to then focus and to be able to learn. So really, really important for us to remember that. So vestibular activities, there can be some that can be very activating and alerting. So those are the movements that are fast and unpredictable motions, like spinning, for example, or really fast kind of unpredictable exercises that we do that involves lots of tilting our head backwards and forward. That is alerting. Whereas we have vestibular movements that suit probably these children very well. And those are the slow, kind of linear rocking motions. So like rocking on a rocking chair, for example, even just sitting on a Swiss ball and kind of just swaying gently and slowly. So it's very important to understand the different bucket sizes and then catering the needs based on their particular sensory needs. So some ideas here, since we're talking about alerting sensory strategies, toe touches, windmills, where you stand basically upright like this, and then you go down and you touch your toes, alternate touching your toes. Fast side bends, spinning around, downward dog pose by yoga, log rolling, where you lie on the ground with your hands up and you roll. Best done on grass, not on concrete. Somersaults, cartwheels as well, with lots of gym pad equipment. Those are all very alerting to the sensory system. So this is another way to bring in alerting activity, especially for our big bucket children, sensory seekers, and also our passive under responders as well, the children that need a little bit more alerting to get them a little bit more the system awakened up so that they can focus on the task at hand. So alerting activities, there is a novelty to it. It's fast-paced, there's uneven beat, there's unpredictability in it, and it's moderate to high intensity. So this is where the HIIT workouts work in really, really well to bring that alerting activities as well. So when do we want to provide these alerting activities? So when you notice that the energy drops after lunch, maybe in the classroom, and getting everybody up for a little bit of a alerting activity. There's some really good Christmas kind of elf exercises on YouTube at the moment. They're quite fun, little dance workouts and stuff. They only last a minute each, and then they have a little bit of a break and then a minute of different ones. So have a look on YouTube. There's heaps of different ideas there. After sitting down for long periods of time, so the optimal for children above the age of 5, we're talking about at least every 20 minutes to half an hour, we need to be able to actually have some movement in order for our brain to integrate the learning at hand. And then also we talked about the sensory seeker and the passive under responder. So in order to fill up their buckets, we want to provide that alerting activity as well. Cool. Great. So now we're moving on to the next acronym, which is integrating. So for integrating, we're looking at the left and right brain. So we have the two different brain hemispheres on the left and right brain. And basically, what integration does is integration allows the left and right brain to basically talk to one another so that they coordinate a response. And so this is what we want. We want to be able to support the integration of learning because the left and right brain have very, very different functions. And so in order for us to have an integrated learner, a learner that's being able to, take in the learning at hand and being able to actually, see those connections forming, we want to be able to provide some integration for their brain. So the part of the brain that supports us with this is called the corpus callosum. So the corpus callosum is actually a set of nerve fibers that actually run in the middle, right here, between the left and right brain. And it's really interesting that there's been MRI scans done of tamariki children that have experienced a lot of neglect, especially in their early years. And what they found was that their corpus callosum wasn't as thick. So their corpus callosum was thinner than children that didn't experience neglect. So this is very important for us to understand as well, why we want to bring in these really, kind of intentional activities and movement activities so that we can support their corpus callosum to be able to integrate and to be able to rewire and to grow, because the brain has this amazing ability to form new networks, neuroplasticity that helps us to learn new skills, to integrate that, and enables us to actually regenerate new brain cells as well. So the corpus callosum is that nerve fibers and that bridges and coordinates between the left and the right brain hemisphere. So as we know, the left brain is very much that more logical side of the brain that helps us with, thinking of concrete figures, maybe mathematics, language, learning skills and stuff like that. That's more in the left side of the brain. Whereas the right side of the brain is more the emotional side of the brain, where it helps us to connect with emotions. It helps us to be creative, helps us to think a little bit outside of the box. So we need both those sides of the brain in order to bring out the best in our tamariki. So one of the best ways to help us to integrate the left and right side of the brain while we're doing learning is to cross the midline. So we have an imaginary midline which runs just in the center of our body. And what the research tells us is that whenever we cross the midline, it actually stimulates and fires these neurons that coordinates the talking and the communication between the two brain hemispheres. So the more that we can do crossing the midline activities, the more it supports us with that. So really, really simple one here. Let's do this together. So if we can just do an imaginary figure 8. So we start off with the right hand side and we're just going down and we're crossing the midline, and then we're going up and down, and then we're going up again and down. So as you see, we're going to be crossing the midline as we're doing this sideways figure 8 exercise. Yeah, cool, awesome. So really, really simple movement activity that you can do in your classroom with all tamariki as well, just crossing the midline with that figure 8. So again, crossing the midline helps with that. So other activities that cross the midline is when you put your elbow to your knee and you cross it over like this. So it's being intentional and supporting tamariki, because some of them might do the same, right knee with right elbow. So helping them to see if we're going to do the alternate knee with the elbow. So then we're crossing the midline with our elbow. And then also we could, stand up and just cross your legs over, again, crossing the midline, and then also doing this as well. So again, we're crossing the midline. And the key here is to really slow it down and to really get the tamariki to join you, but to really notice crossing the midline. Notice what your arms are doing, as you're moving your body from side to side. So this crossing the midline activity, it benefits all buckets, and the best time to do it is before a learning task. So a learning task that requires maybe a lot of concentration and a new skill that maybe they're learning. Maybe they're going up into their new reading level or the new writing level, to get them to do some, 10 of the crossing the midline activities before going into that reading and writing. And again, this benefits all bucket sizes as well. Cool. Great. And the last one for N, the last acronym, is nurturing. So this is where we bring in that calming, centering, grounding activities that help our nervous system to just feel a little bit more connected, to feel a little bit calm, to feel a little bit more centered. So this is really, really important as well, because we want children to experience stress, but we also want them to experience recovery as well. So this actually helps to build a resilient nervous system, a nervous system that's able to experience going up with stress, but coming down from stress and experiencing calm, and then going up and experiencing calm as well. So very important to do that we introduce nurturing activities throughout the day too, especially for the children and the tamariki that grow up in very toxic environments, or maybe they are children that, always very wired for moving their bodies and fidgeting and moving. It's important that they also learn that it's okay that my body can calm down, and it's safe to feel calm, it's safe to feel connected with my body, and I can actually take a deep breath and feel my feet on the ground. So it's very important for this too. So some nurturing activities are familiar. We have slow pace, it's soothing and relaxing. If we're talking about the beats, it's more even beats, it's rhythmic. We think about rocking a baby, that's very, very kind of rhythmic and repetitive. It's predictable, it's low demand, and it's simple. So there's a mild intensity in it. So this is the calming kind of down activities. So when is a great time to do these activities? So we want to as I talked about, if a child is very much in fight-flight system, we want to be able to provide this during the day to be able to help slow the system down to connect with themselves. And for some children, this might be very foreign for a start. So it could be only just 1 minute of doing that. But that's okay, because that's their nervous system learning to regulate and learning to, I go up, but I can come down as well. After an alerting activity, you might want to do a little bit of a slow movement activity where we could, sing a waiata, and we all sing a waiata that has a slow kind of movement to it, and we wiri to it. That can be very, very calming as well and grounding for the nervous system. So you might want to do it too when the energy is high or before a task that increases anxiety. So it might be that you've got cross country coming up, or you've got mufti day, or just before they're supposed to maybe sit for a little test that they do. You might want to do a little bit of a nurturing activity with them. So this also suits all buckets, because all our buckets need to have time to be able to ground their nervous system as well. Awesome. So what is an activity? So we talked about, the buckets, we talked about reorganizing activities, alerting activities, integrating activities, and nurturing activities. And now that I've talked about all that, I'm going to give you an activity that actually incorporates all these 4 activities into one. And I'm like, oh, why didn't you say that at the beginning? Because, we have to kind of like lead you on this journey to follow me right through. So I want to introduce you to what occupational therapists do, called sensory circuits. So first of all, you start off with, so basically it's kind of like you could call it a relay system, or it could be, a circuit that you set up with different activities that they can do. So you start off with alerting activities as the first kind of station. And then you move on to organizing activities where it involves motor control, but also involves the brain and reorganizing the brain. And then you finish off with a calming activity. So this is a really good kind of whole class activity to do before, maybe it's during the day or for PE. You might want to do it during PE, or you might want to do it when the energy is high in the classroom and things seem to be a little bit chaotic, to go outside for a little bit and do a few stations of this. And so the key here is that, we want to do a couple of minutes of each, so maybe like 5 minutes of alerting activities, organizing, and calming. So altogether a 15-minute circuit. So these are some ideas of this. And, these handouts, I'm more than happy for you to have a copy. So, we'll send this out to you after the workshop. If you send me an email, or there's a feedback with the QR code, so I can make sure that the PDF handout gets to you as well. So some ideas of different stations that you can set up. So first of all, we start with alerting. So you might want to have 30 star jumps, or 30 skips, or you want to have 30 seconds of dancing to the music, or jumping from side to side. And then you want to move on to an organizing activity where they have to throw and catch something, or they have to do head, shoulders, knees, and toes, or they have to do Simon Says, or they have to, aim the beanbag into a basket, for example. And so you do a few rounds of that, and then you want to finish off with a calming activity where you might do a breathing exercise. You might do, a wayata that they can do. You might move your body gently with gentle stretches, put some calming music on and be able to move with that, or even a guided meditation as well. Cool. So we're coming to the end. So just to summarize the different acronyms we talked about. So we've got the buckets for B. R was reorganizing. So proprioception, such an important receptor in our body, and how we can bring that into support and reorganize the nervous system. Alerting activities to wake up the sensory system really benefits, especially sensory seekers. And then we have integrating activities. So the ones that cross the midline and help us to integrate the left and right brain. And then finally, we finish off with nurturing activities. So the calming, grounding, centering activities that we can bring in. Awesome. So 8:30, right? All right, on time. That's great. So maybe I've got a QR code here if you want to scan that, and just give me a little bit of feedback around how you found the workshop, and that would be great. But if anybody has any questions, I'm happy to stay around for the next 5 to 10 minutes. You're welcome to chat it in or unmute yourself if you like. That would be great. Oh, and Anna, yeah, thank you. Yes, the corpus callosum is often structurally impacted during fetal brain development if alcohol is introduced. Yeah, absolutely. Yes. Cool. Awesome. So if everybody could scan that QR code, that would be lovely. Thank you so much. That was great. Does anybody have any questions? Just feel free to ask. This is your opportunity for that. Cool. Thank you, Vic.
Andrea, can I just say it was really, really fabulous. I love all the detail that you went into in terms of the actual practical stuff that can be done. So it's really, really lovely to hear all the different ideas and things that can be tried out.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you, Frian.
Thanks.
Yeah, you're a great supporter. Thank you, always. Yeah, it's great. Oh, that's great. Yeah. We never heard of that. I came up with the brain acronym. I love acronyms. I'm a Singaporean. We have acronyms for everything. So I just think it's just easier. And so, we leave a workshop and you remember the acronym and you go like, what do I do now? Oh yeah, brain. So I can do BRAIN throughout your day. Awesome. Cool. Yeah, so go out and try it out. I'd love to hear from you guys how you go. And you've only got a couple more weeks to, I guess, give it a go before term starts, but a great way to begin the year as well with these activities. So just want to finish off with a karakia. So thank you so much for giving up your evening today. I know term 4 is a very, very busy time, and I just really want to honor your passion for tamariki, and that really shows that you have shown up today for them. So thank you. So kia to rangi marie ki ronga ina iwi o te ao. So let your peace reign on all the people of the world. So yeah, my email address is there, andreagreer28@gmail.com. Feel free to send me an email. If you want a handout, I'm more than happy to share that with you. And if you've got any questions, feel free to email me as well. So I'll hand it over to Mark now.
Awesome. Thank you, Andrea. I think you've finished it really well anyway, so I'm going to leave it there. But yeah, please email Andrea. She's an amazing wealth of knowledge. So thank you, Andrea, massively for that. So I just learned so much from it. So thank you.
That's cool. Yeah, it's always better in person, isn't it? But yeah, but webinar is a great way to get everybody in at the same time. So
yeah, and from all parts of the country, which is really cool.
That's so cool. That's great.